Bitcoin could be in serious trouble because of this move that we've seen right here. We have seen two breakouts above our pennant with two potential deviations here, and that means there is a lot to go through in this YouTube video. Ladies and gents, if you are excited for this one, do me a favor and smash those likes up. I did go live with you all literally 5 or 10 minutes ago, and unfortunately I ran into a lot of technical issues. I was trying to fix them the days and even minutes before this live stream. I was actually live before my live stream. I was live on a different YouTube channel and it was all completely fine, but for some reason it just didn't work out. So if you did tune in, my apologies for your time, but you are going to enjoy this video, and it's all because of this area of support at the $68,000 price level, right? On this area, one of the things we need to see in order to validate important areas, which is where we are at right now, is if we get major reversal zones, right? Like if you get a major reversal off a particular price level, that's going to tell you that this price level is also is really, really important. In addition to that, this area was Bitcoin's previous all-time high. We've seen a lot of consolidation here. We've seen a lot of support and so on. Definitely a very important, very charged level in the market. Bitcoin has fallen down to this level and crucially has actually fallen a little bit below this level, which is why I think this is really important in this market, right? When you see the market kind of losing price levels like this or testing them, you've really got to start paying attention because it could be a very strong indication of something big that could be coming. And that is something I want to discuss with you in this video here. It's actually the reason I went live, because this price action is indeed so significant. But here's the thing, right? If you lose this area of support, it does make you start focusing on the next question of, well, where's the next area of support going to be? We've obviously got them drawn out on this chart, but it's not as simple as that. And I'm going to go through that with you in this video here today. But before I continue to go into it, let's talk a little bit more about what actually happened here. We saw a breakout here, which moved up by about 3.7%, which was good, but it then ended up deviating back below. We came back up again, and now we're back down into this area. And it's one of those things that's like, fool me once, but you can't fool me twice, right? If you get this price action down here for the first time, it's okay. It can be a deviation. You get it for the second time, what is the chance that it's a deviation again? In my experience, generally, it's a fairly low chance. In my experience, it's actually generally not a good chance that, there's a positive outcome from here and you actually will have to drop a little bit lower, right? Because it's actually showing you that even though you're getting breakouts, that's not good enough. People are not lining up with excitement to continue to buy the coin, and so instead it has to start trading in the opposite direction. I think that's what we could be seeing here now. Obviously, we have known that there's been a lot of pull down to this potential area of support on the Ichimoku cloud, something that we do typically end up testing within our uptrends eventually, and it is something which is actually really very big now in the very low $60,000 price range, actually moving up into the mid-60s if we end up trading here around the middle of May next month. But right here, I think a lot of very important support starting to line up right now, and it looks like the market could be wanting to come down there. And let me talk to you a little bit more about why that might be. So again, if we do take a look at this price action here with this pennant, we haven't really been able to make good use of this pennant, right? When we were a little bit higher, you could say we were consolidating here before, potentially getting ready to shoot up. But now that we haven't been able to make good use of this, the only thing that's going to send this market higher again from here, in my opinion, is now some market manipulation. Short of that, I don't actually see a silver lining for Bitcoin right now. And that's actually proven by things like the Bitcoin dominance, right? You take a look at the Bitcoin dominance on this chart, and we are at 55.1, which is absolutely astronomically high. We haven't seen Bitcoin dominance levels like this all the way back since about 45 days, and before that going back 50 days, and before that going back 34 days. And in each of these cases, we didn't actually hold the Bitcoin dominance level that we're at right now for longer than basically a day. So if we are able to stabilize up here, this is basically going to be a first for many years. Going back like 3 or 4 years, it's going to be a first, which I think is really important. And we've continued to see that weakness across the altcoin market as well, right? If we take a look at Ethereum, we've seen major weakness here with continuous back tests of this previous area that we were enjoying support at previously, when we fell below this, we just rocketed right back up. This time when we fell below it, we found a back test for resistance and then again for resistance, which are really, really negative signs showing us that we could be looking at a much bigger tumble for the price here. We've also seen that reflected in the dollar. In the S&P 500. The S&P 500 has moved down by quite a bit. And if we look at this on the hourly, this was the Thursday close and this is the Friday open, right? So the Thursday close came in over here at about 51.90 and the Friday open much lower at about 51.63, and this entire trading session has continued to take the S&P 500 lower, and it's going to be over in about 2 hours. This is actually a really big deal because this is the final candle on this weekly candle right here. It ends in 2 hours, and this is a fairly large pullback for the S&P 500 compared to the price action we've seen over the last 24 weeks. That is a very, very long period of time, ladies and gents. We are literally looking at like 6 months here of price action, or like 5 months of price action, where we haven't seen any sort of significant pullback until this week. And that cannot take us by surprise. We already knew that this was overdue and that this had to come into the market, and I think that really tells us a lot about where things could be headed. There's one thing which makes this all a little bit more complicated, which is the dollar. You see, the dollar has moved up by a lot. Just in the last few days, it's managed to climb up by about 2%, which is absolutely huge for the dollar, but it also means that the dollar has moved into its most critical area of support on this chart that we have close to the current areas, right? We've seen major reversals coming off this level, not only back here in July of 22, but also all throughout 2023. We've seen major reversals taking place at this particular level for the dollar, and this is exactly where we are right now. If the same thing happens again, then that actually means that Bitcoin is about to see a lot of sunshine potentially, because we do typically see that when the dollar moves up, S&P 500 moves down, Bitcoin moves down. But if the dollar is at resistance now, well, then the opposite might be happening. This all gets a lot more confusing when you look at gold, which, even though it is pulling back right now, it has seen a huge rally up just over the last 60 days, up by about 22%. Absolutely enormous rally up from that breakout point to where we are now. It's only been about 2.5 weeks and still up by about 11.5%, which is strongly out of character for the dollar. And again, for gold, and I think strongly implies just how weird these times are. But if we do bring it back to this market, we can actually make a little bit more sense out of this chart. And that's what I want to show you guys in this video here, pardon me, as we continue to go on. Because this is shaping up for some very, very exciting price actions, not only in Bitcoin, but also across the altcoins. And you already know the deal. If you want to take advantage of the phenomenal offers linked down below, you are going to get free cash that you can trade with right here on Bybit. When you start trading using my link down below, they're going to give you up to $30,000 in completely free trading capital. You can deploy that into the market any way you wish, and any profits you generate are going to be yours to keep, which is absolutely amazing. You can even trade your shit coins with absolutely zero fees, which is super, super cool. They're even going to give you a $500 Bitcoin position. There's just a lot of shit going on with Bybit right now. Check it all out with the links in the description. And if you want a no KYC alternative, then these are two phenomenal alternative exchanges that are very well worth checking out with the links in the description down below. So if you like that kind of thing, that's all there for you in the description. Now that we're potentially looking at losing this area of support, let's talk about where this thing could be headed next. Now, we've moved quite deep into this pennant, and I think that this pennant is no longer going to be important in the market, right? We've had two real breakouts out of this pennant, and none of them have manifested into anything, which is a really, really negative sign for the market. So now, to me, it's just back to this sideways range, and that means to me that at best, we're probably going to be ranging something a little bit like this, or potentially even pulling back significantly lower. And that's one of the things I want to discuss with you in this video as well. But if we do end up losing these areas, then like I said toward the very beginning of this video, it's going to be all about, well, where can you fall to next? And the next area of support I have drawn on this chart is the $65,000 price area, where we've seen some nice moves, right? We've seen some wicks here, some small reversals. Nothing too crazy, but definitely nothing horrible either. It's not the strongest area of support, but it is something I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. I don't personally think that it's going to support the price of Bitcoin higher, other than for the fact that it does line up with this ascending triangle a little bit, which is a longer term macro sign, which I think is actually very, very strong. Let me see if I can find you the chart that I showed you guys about that very recently in one of the recent YouTube videos. Those of you that were subscribed are going to know all about this. This is actually a very, very cool chart here. Take a look at this one right here. This is the 2020 Bitcoin chart when Bitcoin started trading at 20K again for the first time in about 3 years. We can see really, really nice tests of our support diagonal line and of our horizontal resistance line, just across the board looking absolutely phenomenal, and exactly the same right now. Both of these bits of price action taking place at all-time highs, and both of them consolidating right under the all-time high, right? So lots of stark similarities with what we had back in 2020, and obviously the upside potential there was huge. We covered this in a recent video, and it was definitely something that I was liking the look of. I still think that this could be in play, and really this is the last saving grace that Bitcoin has, but it's not the kind of thing that I want to be placing my bets on. That's why I'm not really going to focus on it. However, if you like these kind of fractals, then you're probably going to like this quite a bit, and you're probably going to think that this is actually really good, and Bitcoin should probably bounce off slightly lower levels than here, and then continue to move up. Again, that also lines up with the dollar, right? If the dollar is trading at such important macro resistance now, and the dollar is going to start coming back down, because that's what happens at resistance levels, well then, we've got the perfect setup on Bitcoin. Like, that's exactly what's going to play out. It really is a very, very interesting time in the market because of these factors. It even means that Bitcoin's dominance can continue to rise, because it might mean that Bitcoin just absolutely shoots the fuck up. Or even if it drops down, either way, Bitcoin's dominance is probably going to keep rising because all eyes are going to be on Bitcoin. So let's continue on back here. We are slipping a little bit further down right now as I speak. If we do end up moving a little bit further down toward that 65K level, then I'm not, just with everything else I've said, ignoring this pennant, I'm not super, kind of optimistic that it's going to support the price action. So for me, we're going to have to fall down to the next important level, and that is going to be the 60K level for me. And the reason I'm saying that is because that is more or less where we've seen two very big bounces here. This first bounce here actually triggered the real move to the all-time high, which was an 8-day 24% rally. And then right after that, we did see another 6-day 17% rally off a very similar price area on the chart. So that is going to be something I'm going to continue to keep an eye out for, because if we do end up falling down here, it has been a long time since we've had these tests, right? I mean, the first test was about 14 days apart. Now, if it happens, say, tomorrow, we're looking at about 23 days apart. Definitely a very good, kind of gap in terms of support. Definitely something that I would class as valid. Therefore, an area that I might be considering, kind of buying a little bit of Bitcoin at, maybe even a little deviation if we break that range and then continue on trading higher. Definitely not something I would want to rule out. So that's something I'm really liking the look of. It looks very clear that this was a ceiling for Bitcoin. So especially if we start kind of losing this low, which we already have done, that's going to be an indication that we're no longer setting higher lows in this market, right? And if you're no longer setting higher lows in the market, then you might no longer be in an uptrend, and you might actually be in a downtrend. So, that could strongly imply that we continue to move back down into the bottom of this range. And it all becomes a much more macro setup now. If we look at, again, it's things like the Ichimoku cloud, which are still offering support here, showing that, it's not over, right? It's not over if that happens. It's actually going to be pretty good if that happens to Bitcoin, because it's going to mean that we can make very good use of our longer term areas of support, which I think the market would probably appreciate quite a bit, right? We've even got weekly EMA support that hasn't quite caught up to the trend, and it's not the most important indicator ever, right? Like, it's really not something I would swear by, or not even something I use particularly often, but, it is worth noting that this, support still hasn't caught up, and it can be a display of just how strong the market has been, or how excessively strong, I should say, the market has been, and that can definitely be an interesting discussion in and of itself. So daily time frame here, we've still got phenomenal support on the daily EMA ribbon, and that's something which I think still looks pretty cool. Given that this is looking very strong on the daily EMA ribbon, that does give us a speculative area of support stretching down all the way to about $64,000. I don't know how much weight I would put on that. I think that these sideways ranges are still going to be more important. But again, like I said, different people are going to be looking for different things in the market, right? So I think that's really important. If the market does manage to recover above this area of resistance, which it is now, it is resistance now, then I think this next area of resistance is going to be in play at 71. And I still don't think that 71K is strong resistance, right? I mean, we did happen to get rejected at it, but to me, that's not because this is a strong area of resistance. And so if we do manage to get back up to this area of resistance, I'm probably going to expect that it breaks and the market skyrockets above. And that's when our really fun price action target start coming back into play, right? There's the first one at about $83,000, which is just the speculative target of the ascending triangle that I showed you a little bit earlier. But then there's also really exciting ones like 110 and 150K, and we've covered all of them in the recent videos on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, made your way down into the description while you are down there taking advantage of your phenomenal offers, including the no KYC alternatives to Bybit, which are still offering you huge amounts. While you're on the way down that, definitely make sure to subscribe and hit the like button, because the more you show YouTube that you like this content, the more likely you are to get it pushed into your homepage, and so you get notified for it and stuff like that. And that is very important because of how time sensitive this content is. Once again, ladies and gents, before I continue, I want to give you all a huge apology for the issues that we've had in this with the live stream that I did earlier. I can't stress enough how certain I was that things were going to work, because I was literally live right before this live stream already, and it was a completely hassle-free, no stress live stream. So it was very disappointing for me that it didn't work out, but again, we're here now anyway. Again, I just, it's really not something that I take lightly, and I'm going to look into it to make sure that it's good, because I want to do a lot more live shows with you guys, especially during bits of price action like this. So thank you all very much for your patience. I really appreciate the patience and support you guys have been giving. It does not go as unnoticed. Like I said, I am reading every one of your comments. I don't even have my camera on today because I just wanted to limit any kind of distractions or things that could be going wrong in the video. But let's continue on with the analysis here. If we do end up smashing through that area of resistance, which, I think would happen if we get back up there, then it's going to be back to all-time high season, and that's going to be super, super fun. But I think the way it is right now, if we do end up kind of traveling down and coming back here for a back test, I'm going to have to expect that this turns into resistance and becomes an interesting place to start, that some people are going to be starting to look at, perhaps offloading some Bitcoin at, which is going to be an interesting one. And it's also especially interesting because the Hong Kong ETF, we're hearing some strong rumors that that's about to get approved by Bloomberg. And typically when, you do get news agencies like Bloomberg reporting on things like this with this level of certainty, they are indeed correct typically, right? So, we could be looking at a similar situation right now where they're correct. And if that is the case, then those ETFs are going to be approved by Monday, which means there's going to be a lot, one of the things to keep in mind with the US ETFs, right, is that if you're not in the US, kind of banking system or whatever, you don't have access to those ETFs. But if you're Asian, so if you're Asian, you're not going to be able to buy Bitcoin through those ETFs, and so these Asian Hong Kong ETFs are going to be a potentially very big deal for that very reason. And that's something which could be a strong bullish narrative for Bitcoin. And still, in the face of that, we are starting to see this kind of drop. So to me, that is spelling something very, very important. I still don't want to make any strong conclusions on this chart until we see what happens with the dollar. The fact that the dollar has come up this high this quickly is really important, and the dollar doesn't necessarily move like a stock or like Bitcoin, right? So, if the dollar, due to political factors or whatever the case may be, is getting a little bit stronger, well, then it's probably going to continue to rally up, and that is exactly what happened earlier when we managed to hit this area of resistance back here in June of 22. We did, see initially a bit of a pullback here, but then it was a pretty quick rocket ship up, and it did end up taking the dollar all the way at its peak. And this was right before the FTX crash, and I mean right before the FTX crash, up to about 114 on the dollar index, right? So I'm not saying that we're going to be doing that again, but we certainly have the setup for it right now, and I just want to see how this is going to play out. If, like I said, the dollar does start to reverse, well, then I'm going to expect that the sunshine is going to continue for the S&P 500 and indeed for Bitcoin as well, which are both going to be very, very exciting markets, or in the S&P 500's case, an index to be taking a look at. We've seen a lot of blood across the altcoin market, ladies and gents. Take a look at this with Matic. We are down to 78 cents. I mean, just an absolutely huge dump within a very short space of time. Look at these 2 4-hour candles stretching down by 11%. If we take a look at this on Solana, which has actually been one of the strongest performers for quite some time, from its high all the way down to its low, stretching down by about 10% here, and that's all happening within about within about 8 hours on this chart. Most of that price action happening in about 8 hours. So very, very big deal. We've seen ARB absolutely fall off a cliff. I mean, these markets are not happy right now, ladies and gents. Again, just over these last 8 hours, down by about 14%. There is carnage absolutely everywhere, but to me, that is the beginning of opportunity. So I am very, very excited to see where this could be going. I mean, look at this chart right here, ladies and gents. We have got such a phenomenal area of support for ARB right here at about the $1.20, $1.18 level, let's say, and we have dropped down so aggressively into this price range. We're not quite there yet, but if we do end up falling into this price range, I mean, after a drop like this, at a minimum, I'm going to have to expect some sort of bounce, right? And the beautiful thing about a bounce off these levels is, I mean, the first potential target for me would be about 10% above, but it can get way crazier than that. I mean, it can go significantly higher than that, before it starts to encounter other areas of resistance. And so I think that this is still just the very beginning of where a lot of phenomenal opportunities are going to be presenting themselves. And that's why I cannot bring myself to be worried about this like a lot of other people might be right now. Again, I will be trading these moves on Bybit, link down in the description below, but I do also use BingX and 2Bit here, which are both phenomenal exchanges that are worth considering checking out. So if you do like the sound of that, if you like the sound of all this free cash with no KYC, no pictures of yourself or your passport, then definitely check them out. And like I said, if you want a free $30,000 trading bonus on Bybit, the best exchange in the game, hands down, then definitely check them out with the link in the description down below. I don't make the rules. Bybit just happens to be the best in the game. Obviously, I've been working with them for a little bit now up until this stage, but I was using them as my favorite and primary exchange way before I even started to work with them because of how good their technology is. Let's take a look at Cardano as well. Zooming out here, I mean, to me, this is a very interesting chart, right? Like, this is where money starts to get made. This is where opportunities start to come back in. So I'm really, really liking the look of this chart. Holy shit, Solana just died. What the fuck? This just happened in the last minute. Wow, look at that. Solana's just gone. Solana's just gone. Look at that. Bitcoin's down to 67K. Yeah, it is all popping off. So for me, it's going to be these back tests that I'm going to be most interested in trading right now, ladies and gents. It's going to be, coming back up to these resistance levels, potentially going short, and if we see bigger pullbacks, I'm going to be looking at those to be buying more crypto. I think I'm going to have to come back at you guys with another video a little bit later on, especially when I fix these technical issues. Hopefully even another live stream a little bit later on today. So if you have enjoyed this one, do me a favor and smash up those likes. Double check that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on the next bit of content that I'm going to be putting out. I know I still haven't given you guys the Ethereum Bitcoin analysis video. We just keep getting more important price action than this, but the drops keep on coming, and if we lose this low for Ethereum against Bitcoin, it is fucking lights out, ladies and gents. I don't know how low this thing could be going yet. I will tell you all where I think it might be going in the Ethereum Bitcoin videos. So again, if you are excited for that one, make sure you do subscribe. I think that could be some of the easiest money to make in the market. We are going to be taking a look at this. I'm going to try and get my live stream stuff working, so definitely make sure you are subscribed. And again, there's a lot of free cash waiting for you on the table where you could be taking advantage of this volatility fairly risk-free as well. So super, super cool stuff there. Thank you all for tuning in, ladies and gents. You know exactly what to do. Hit up the like, subscribe, tick the bell, do all of that good stuff. I'm going to try and come back to you guys very soon, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.